We are currently recording on the brand new Sony A6600, which does, basically it's like Sony watched all of my previous videos about the A6400 and we're like, hey, we're gonna make a camera that solves all of the everyday dad's problems. I appreciate that, Sony. This has better battery life. It's got stabilization, which I hope you can see right now. And it's got even better autofocus. And thank you so much, Sony, for bringing me out here in the current rain here around New York City. But today we're gonna do a very quick initial impressions, hands-on first look of the Sony A6600. And since it's raining and I'd like to go back into my studio, let's hop into the future and see what my studio's like. See you there. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. Thanks to Sony for bringing me out to the launch event for the new A6600 and 6100 cameras. Now, it's been a heck of a week traveling around and spending about a full day with their new flagship APS-C camera, and it kind of basically fixes every complaint that I've had with my current favorite camera of the year, the Sony A6400. You can't see it, but it's right over there. It's got that bigger battery, it's got that stabilization, and heck, for those of you that even spend most of your time behind the camera, it's got a headphone out jack. That's pretty useful. I mean, again, it doesn't help me that much, but it certainly can help somebody. So let's break this quick initial impressions video down into the 3 most important features cameras need to bring to the table for the online content creator. First up, video quality. Now, honestly, the A6600 really doesn't change much from its predecessor or predecessor, it's not really a word, A6500 and the A6400 cameras. It can record up to 4K 30 frames per second in a 420 8-bit codec. Kind of hoping for 4K 60, but we didn't get it. It also has the ability to use the Sony log profiles, and again, not much different. I mean, that hasn't changed from the previous cameras, except, and we'll talk about the 6100 when we get it, it does not have those features. And in video quality is probably the right time to mention it, but the A6600 is pricey. Now, it's $1,400 for just the body alone. And the question is gonna be, if it's got the exact same sensor, a similar processor, I mean, is that extra money worth it? There are absolute extra benefits you get for the money that we will talk about in the ease of use section, but for straight up image quality and audio recording, you're really getting the same thing that you got before. You're not gonna see much over the A6400. I mean, again, that's not to say it's bad. I love the A6400 for a reason, and that's because it combines great image quality with a fantastically easy to use active system, and it doesn't cost that much. Time will tell if the A6600 it gives you more value for those extra features. But since it's still raining in the past, let's hop outside so that you can see a quick vlogging test with the A6600 and that brand new 16-55 2.8 lens. And welcome to the vlogging test of the Sony A6600. So I'm very excited for this camera. It's got a lot of things that I've been complaining about for a long time with like the A6400, and it really goes to show that they will listen to their customers and people that use their cameras on a very frequent basis, and that's the best part about Sony. So this camera does have a few things that I'm very much looking forward to, and I hope that you can see it right now. Again, this is a quick initial hands-on impressions. I've only had this camera for 1 day so far. I've had 1 battery to work through, so you know what this looks like right now. I have no idea, but I hope the stabilization is working great. I can see myself, so at least I know that I'm in focus. It's raining, so the screen's wet, so kind of guessing there a little bit. But yeah, this is the vlogging capabilities of the camera, monitoring the audio. We're currently recording the audio with the Rode Wireless Go. Maybe you can see it right there. But yeah, this is not that heavy of a setup. Like, I figured this plus the 16-55 2.8 would be a very heavy, cumbersome setup that I would not necessarily want to carry with me, and it's not that bad. That's what Sony keeps doing. Sony keeps inviting me out to events, and then I keep buying their cameras. They did it with the RX100 Mark VII, and they're probably gonna do it with the A6600. Okay, it's still raining. Let's head back to the studio. And back in the studio in the future again, which I like. I just like being home and out of the rain. Next up, ease of use. And this is actually where the A6600 spends its extra money. Now, there are some legitimate upgrades here that might stretch to be purchasing decision tech. The absolute biggest improvement the A6600 has over literally every other APS-C camera on the market, including Fuji, is it has the new Sony Z-type battery, which originally was released with the A7 third generation of cameras. Now, something that upsets me to no end about the A6400 is the battery life is terrible. I can actually, as I record video, I can watch the percentage tick down in real time, and that's awful. Having a bigger battery is such a better option for me. Yes, you can always bring along like handfuls of batteries and whatever, you can get by with that, but I like not having to stop a shoot to change a battery or worry about making a battery charged in the first place. I like one battery that just works. That's what I do with my GH5. Not only the battery, but the redesign of the body to fit this battery makes the camera more comfortable to hold. And it might actually be one of the most comfortable cameras I've ever held. And I don't just mean in a Sony APS-C sense, I mean in like all time. It is incredibly comfortable to hold. Another big change that I'm pretty happy about is the use of the A6500 body as the base, meaning you get more customizable buttons. For example, really quickly, you get the two C buttons on top, and I will absolutely never ever complain about having more ways to set up a camera, because I like being able to set up a camera to be mine as opposed to being forced to use it the way that the camera company decided. Emergent camera design and use. It's like video games, but cameras. Like I've mentioned previously, ease of use is broken into both pre and post hitting record, and no kidding, another huge update is after you hit record, because basically there are three things that I look for after I hit record. Stabilization. Yes, they do now have stabilization. It now has the in-body image stabilization from the A6500, and it's nothing to write home about. If you like Sony IBIS, you'll like this. I've never found Sony IBIS to be worth spending the money on, at least for the interchangeable lens cameras. Now, I do really wish they would add the electronic stabilization that they've started to implement on their newer, smaller cameras, like the RX0 Mark II and the RX100 Mark VII. They both have really good electronic image stabilization. But also for that sweet recording easiness though, you'll also need some way to monitor yourself, and it's got that divisive flip up screen, which I really like, and it's got Sony's autofocus. And let's talk Sony's autofocus. It's the best on the market right now. Like, it's not even close. Canon was on top like 4 or 5 years ago. Sony has taken it by storm. Now, I don't know what kind of magic Sony has started working up, but it's creepy good. It's like probably the AI that will start the downfall of humanity, because it just never lets go. And it's like right now in the RX100 Mark VII, it's doing eye autofocus in video. That's nuts. I mean, it is better than their face tracking, and darn it, the face tracking on the A6400 it was the best up to right now. I mean, you never ever have to worry about being in focus here. It's phenomenal, and Sony is the absolute king. And it's not as big of a deal for the RX100 Mark VII because it's got that smaller sensor, but when you've got the bigger APS-C sensors and you use fast zooms or primes, you really gotta have that focus if you want the shallow depth of field, and Sony they just win. They win. Canon catch up. Now, I do wish they had touchscreens that affected the menus, but none of the Sony cameras do, so I can't really specifically fault the A6600 for that. And last but not least, if you were to pre-order one of the A6600s, what does the ecosystem look like? Well, it's actually kind of funny. The day before the A6600 was announced, I would have said it's an okay ecosystem, but it's lacking in APS-C zoom lenses. Funny enough, with the announcement of the A6600, Sony also announced 2 new lenses, which I'm not really into the super zoom, but the most exciting was the 16 to 55 2.8 that we were using for the vlogging test, and you've been seeing throughout this entire video. That is the most useful standard zoom lens that they could have made, and it's got all of the newest and best Sony lens tech out there, and it's a fantastic piece of glass. Problem is, it runs the same cost as the A6600 body itself. The 6600 is $1,400, the new lens is $1,400. That's a pretty expensive kit. But even without that lens, you've still got access to those wonderful Sigma primes, and those primes really are what make the system worthwhile, because they don't cost that much, but they have fantastic optical image quality, and they're just great. Like right now, we're using the 16mm on the GH5. Now, it does make it a little more cropped in than it does on the APS-C sensors for the A6600, but it's really good. Plus, like I mentioned earlier, you still got that new Z-type battery, so you won't need to carry around so many of those darn tiny Sony batteries. They're all over there, so I can't show you a cascade of batteries, but trust me, cascade of batteries is the right amount when you're using those little things. And at the end of the day, that's really the biggest upgrade is the Z battery. The Z-type battery is one of the best advancements Sony's come out with recently, and fitting that into an APS-C camera is just wonderful. However though, at the end of the day, so what, right? After my initial day of hands-on with the A6600, would I recommend you pre-ordering it over something like my beloved A6400? For me, no. I would not personally choose the A6600 over the A6400. The A6600 is a fantastic camera. It's one of the best cameras I've used recently, but that price is steep and it's missing a few key features that the competition definitely has. It has no 4K 60, no 10-bit, and asking for $1,400 for that when you can find a used A6400 for like $700, that's pretty steep. I still think the A6400 is the best buy in the Sony camera line if you want a camera for online content. You get pretty much the same everything except the big battery and the IBIS. But again, Sony's IBIS is never something that I have found to be good enough to make a purchasing decision. What do you think though? What are some things that you would like to see once we actually get a production copy in the studio here? So leave a comment below and we can start the planning and make this like a collaborative effort between all of us. Thanks for watching.